Political impact to the economic impact of Irene, and to discuss this I'm joined now by John Barnshaw from Tampa in the U.S. state of Florida. He's a postdoctoral fellow in sociology at the University of South Florida. Thank you very much for being with us. Any way to tell, Mr. Barnshaw, what Irene is going to cost Americans? Is it possible to put a price tag on this?
Well, it's difficult right now to put a price tag on it, and that's mainly because we don't know the full impact of the storm. There's some projected models that say damage would be between $10 billion and $80 billion, but I think that's a little bit too early to tell right now, and you can see the wide variance between the two estimates.
Okay, well, let's take a city like New York, a very international place. I mean, is it possible to sort of, work out some kind of scenario in terms of, what the likely kind of impact is going to be in a place where the mass transit is not working, how long it would take to get that up and running again, especially if there's flooding, and of course, mass transit is a system of transportation that even Mayor Bloomberg uses, very famously. It's going to be a while, one would think, before people are about to kind of go about their daily business.
Right, and it's a real concern, but I think first you have to wait and put things into perspective. If it's a Category 1 hurricane that makes landfall in the New York City area, the biggest concern would be worrying too much about whether the storm stalls. If it stalls, then you could have a catastrophic situation, which would be similar to Katrina, where there's a lot of inundation and the damages could run between 55 billion in losses in just a single area. But if the storm is just a disaster where it moves through as a Category 1 and there's some flooding of 4 to 6 feet, then the damage would be, and the damage estimates would be significantly lower than that number.
And can you give us some insight into perhaps how the costs of preparing for the hurricane get picked up? I mean, who has to pay for what?
Sure. As far as the cost of hurricanes, generally FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, usually bears about 75% of the cost, and the other 25% is usually between local and state. Local and state actually do make most of the initial cost estimates, and then they're usually reimbursed through FEMA. But that process takes quite a while to actually get the money back to the states and the local governments.
And what about most people? Will they have insurance to be able to deal with the impact of Irene?
That's a really good question. One of the problems with actually coming up with good, hard and fast numbers is because there's a wide variance on insurance and how insurance coverage and policies work. If you don't have a flood insurance policy, then your regular homeowner's insurance policy might not pick up some of these things. Similarly, if you have a problem where an act of God, which something like a hurricane, is covered in your policy and it blows off your roof, you might get reimbursed for your roof, but you might not get reimbursed for the flood damage that is caused while your roof is blown off.
All right, John Barnshaw, thank you very much for joining us from Tampa in Florida.